Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone. We just did this.
I know. I thought you were going to chime in with something.
Oh, like an ointment?
I mean, has anything happened between the last 24 hours that's worth, or anything that's not too deep, you know what I mean? The
Well,
ointment segments are just supposed to be like,
topical.
yeah.
Well, it was topical because it was topical in our house where we remembered that there was a tradition
Oh, yeah.
that we didn't mention yesterday when we were talking about our holiday things.
Yeah, there's a couple. We dropped the ball a couple times. There's one or two Josh had that we didn't talk about. There's one we didn't talk about. All right, let's talk about that. This is something we just discovered.
Last
Yeah,
year.
it was great.
And the anticipation of this year
Yeah.
is building.
Yeah, it's going to be Monday.
Woo!
I know. We realized that going shopping for each other for Christmas.
Super silly.
Well, I mean, it involves sneaking out of the house or sneaking away, right? Or just trying to get away so we're not together.
Yep.
So your presence can be a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought that's a lot of time and effort and energy. Why don't we just together go shopping, buy the things we want, wrap them, put them under the tree,
Yeah.
and then we get the kind of the rush, the buzz, the fun of like doing the shopping, and then we get it later.
Well, and like we get the right size.
Yep, there's the right size.
And we get to go out to dinner together.
Yeah, it's a great day.
We get to listen to Christmas music in the car.
Yeah.
And it's a whole thing. I really want to also put something out there to you that I don't know how you're going to feel about.
Oh, okay.
I want brown paper packages tied up with string.
Oh. You want all of them to be that way?
Yeah. I want to wrap all the presents.
So you want me to go a year without wrapping paper? Like the typical what you would normally find wrapping paper.
I just want to get brown paper. And
Yeah?
like some pretty string and ribbon to tie around it.
Okay.
Old school style.
Okay.
Old school. You hate it?
I'm not super psyched.
Hmm.
I'm not saying no. It's going to take...
You love a flashy Christmas.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Flashy.
I would like Victorian Christmas. I'm like, let's cut out pictures in magazines and glue them to cards.
Sure, we can have a whole afternoon of that. We can do that when we get back from shopping on Monday.
Okay. I don't love wrapping paper.
Why?
The quality is not consistent.
Okay.
And some of it's good and thick, but then the tape doesn't stick to it. Some of it rips willy-nilly for no reason because it's too thin. I get mad when like I run out of a particular pattern and then it's like 6 different patterns of wrapping paper.
I like that too.
You love that.
I do.
That's what I mean. Like a flashy Christmas.
It's not flashy by any means.
You like bright lights.
It's garish, if anything.
You like bright lights. You like the Christmas tree talking to itself. You like...
It's not the singing bush from Three Amigos. It's
that
not
would
just
be really
like
cool.
humming itself a tune. It's the ornaments that you got me.
Because I know that you like a flashy Christmas.
It's not flashy. Stop
It's
saying
like
flashy.
lightsaber style.
Stop saying flashy.
Okay.
We have to think of it. It's definitely not flashy. I could be talked into it, I suppose.
I mean, or not. It just was an idea that
It's
like
an
we
idea.
could go get a giant roll of brown paper,
Uh-huh.
and I wouldn't have to be like wrapping presents 2 days before Christmas, thinking I'm gonna be so close, and I'm gonna run out.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have the leftover paper that we can't use for anything else.
Sure, but what do we use the brown paper for?
Mailing requirements.
Mailing what?
I don't know.
Tell me the last time you set foot in the post office in Groton. Do you know where it is?
Fa la 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 la.
You know what else? Other tradition that started last year, but I put the kibosh to. Similarly, how you and I are going shopping for each other with each other.
Yeah.
You, instead of saying to the children, hey, I want lists, give me lists, you were just like, you know what? I'm taking you guys to get the things.
Yep.
And we're not doing that either.
We're not doing that again. We're not doing that
Because
again.
they're all over 21, which means they all get
Grown
a
up
few
presents.
things. Yeah, you get grown-up presents.
You get grown up level.
Yeah.
Yep. It's true.
I've been wanting this for years.
You know what's funny is I don't even think that they care.
That's my point.
Yeah, like I think they are just totally happy that we're gonna be here all day eating yummy food and playing board games.
That has been my point.
It's really cute.
I know.
It's me. It's like I love getting them stuff. Like I
Right,
love
yeah.
getting them stuff. And like to a point, like there's certain things that give me anxiety shopping because I always mess up the shoes without fail. Like
Yeah.
someone's shoes don't fit and then it's a whole thing. But yeah, I just love it. I love trying to. What's been interesting this year though is like pump the brakes, Jeannie, pump the brakes. You're not getting them a bunch of stuff.
No.
And so then I'm like very careful, right? I've been so like, no, this is actually what I'm buying her.
Right.
You know, this is
Yeah.
what I'm getting. So it, you know, there's just it's too much consumerism. It's too much stuff. And even coming from like a really, you know, genuine place, we don't need more stuff.
Right. It's funny because for me, this ended last year because you had like orchestrated this, organized it, and on the Sunday you were going to go, one of the children was like an hour late to our house to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like, you are never doing this again. You are not doing this.
Well, on a Sunday when everything closes early, I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be
Like, you're
tight."
not doing this. You have put enough effort to orchestrating crap for them for a lifetime. That's enough. I'm calling it as the husband.
Except for the dinners.
That's different. I mean, this is like, it's different to like make a dinner for people. And like, I'm taking the children to buy Christmas presents. Like, that time is past. That is over and done with. There doesn't need to be. Now, this is another thing I've been trying to strive for, but you will not back me up. Is the equal participation of Christmas. And I don't mean gift giving, or I don't mean gift buying.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I am sick. I should say I'm sick. I am done with like, and this doesn't really happen. This was a thing maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's been less of a thing, and it's not really a thing. But the equal participation, that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy me a gift. That means I wish you can make something. Give me something that is any amount of thoughtful to participate in this thing. You just don't get to come here and have Christmas throw up all over you. Like, you're not 5. Like, you're an adult. Like,
Yeah, I
participate
agree.
in any way.
I love the participation as long as it happens outside of the kitchen.
Okay.
I just don't really want help in the kitchen.
that's
I
fine.
don't.
Yeah.
I love and this is true for me about hosting anything. Like, this isn't exclusive to our children.
Right.
It is not.
Yeah.
It is like if you're invited over, I want you to feel like you don't have to think about anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I
you
get
get
it.
to just come over.
Totally.
Because that's how I feel at your parents' house. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like when we go visit mom and dad, like, oh, it's like I feel more on vacation in your mother's kitchen and house than I do almost any vacation I've ever gone on in my entire life.
No,
Like,
yeah, you don't have to sell that to me.
oh my God, it's
I'm in-
amazing.
I'm in my host era. So I
You are in your
totally
host
get
era.
like, please come here. We are hosting. And what goes with that is we are providing. We are
Yeah.
like, we are having the food. We're having the drinks. We're having anything. You don't have to do a thing. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is not what we're here to talk about. We already did the
No,
Christmas
yeah.
episode, holiday.
Well, I mean, this one's
Shenanigans.
coming out the Friday before.
Yes.
So it's okay.
So it's okay.
Now, I do feel bad because Josh had a Christmas tradition that he forgot to mention.
What was it?
It was Christmas caroling.
Oh,
The Reynolds family.
so cute.
The Reynolds family Christmas
Of course, that's a tradition in the Reynolds family.
extravaganza. It sounds like it started with like his dad's side because there's like 10 of them, and they would go in a big group and carol around the neighborhood. And over the years, because of marriages, children, family being included, it's grown to like 50 people, like an exorbitant, like a large amount of people.
So cute.
And even like some places they go are such regulars where the people in the house will have made like snacks, hot chocolate, and stuff like that. So it's a thing that they do, and I wanted him to tell that story today because we were supposed to
Mm.
podcast, but he didn't. So I'll tell it for him.
Tell it for him.
And it just sounds like the cutest Josh's family. I've never met like his parents.
Yeah.
But from the stories he's told, it sounds like exactly what. I'm not surprised at all. It sounds like exactly what they would do. It's awesome.
So cute.
It is.
What are we here to talk about?
Ugh.
Do you remember?
Do you? Are you testing me?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh. Then no. I'm gonna take a mental load off and stop trying to think because you already know.
Well,
Something to do with spiritual journey. Is that right?
This will certainly be off the cuff for you, since
Nice.
you know
That's good. I mean,
you weren't preparing.
don't want to spend too much time. I don't need notes.
Yeah, like I think that there is a perception that we've been on a similar spiritual path, journey, trajectory together our entire relationship.
Really?
Yeah.
I
think
guess-
I think people have that perspective.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
I mean, you work here, we
do.
work together,
That's true.
you know.
We work together. We work at the organization.
You are in videos
Yes, that's true.
where I am teaching you
Right.
yoga,
Yep.
right? So, there's a lot of clues out there that would lend themselves to that belief.
Right. That is, if you're right. I think if you asked some people, they would probably say yes. Similar spiritual journey, similar timeline, based on the evidence. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought of that though. I mean, I guess I never thought of not the image we put out there, because it's not like image. It's just who we are. It's not cultivated in any way. But it's still an image. It's still like what people see or how they
We don't try
see.
at all.
I didn't say that. I mean, you don't have to try when you're just being yourself.
It's
That's
true.
the best thing.
It's true.
Yeah, I never really thought about what that would look like.
Like what the perception could
Right.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never once occurred to me. Interesting.
Yeah, and I'll get regular questions, I think, of like, well, how did you convince Matt that this is the way, kind of a thing, like this is a good idea, or to do yoga, or to meditate, or to any of those things. And so I think there's that assumption as well, that if we didn't start off,
I like the assumption is that
I was like, psst,
yeah, how did you get him to do this kind of thing?
come over here.
Also, not an unjust or unfair assumption.
Totally.
I mean, give me a little credit.
Mm.
Whilst I was not the cast iron pan seasoned level,
Mm-hmm.
I was pre-seasoned a little bit. There was very beginner level yoga practice.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, as far as physicality, I could participate and do a 90-minute class. That
Yes.
wasn't like, oh, I'm going to bring him. I hope doesn't hurt himself, or I hope he's not too sore tomorrow. There was never that concern, because I had done physical activity through yoga or any sort of, I used to be a runner. Like there was that. So when we met, I wasn't really running. I had just kind of it's been a year or two. So I was not that out of shape, but I did go to the gym. So there was a level of physical practice. Part of that included a yoga practice.
Yeah.
As basic as it was.
Yeah, I mean, there was never a time in our relationship where I was like, let's go to yoga. And you were like, no. That was never the experience. There was a time.
The one time, which I'm sure we've told this story. Have we told this story on this podcast?
We had gone to the teacher that was teaching this class. She was covering a class, and she and I had graduated from our first 200 hours together. And she was like, come to my class. I'm so excited. I want familiar faces there,
Right,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. So that happened to be essentially a hot power Baptiste style,
Yeah. Oh my god.
fast.
Never. This is not a reflection of this person as a teacher.
Right.
It is a reflection of the style of yoga that's not for me.
Not for you.
No, it's not. Am I boring you?
Stop it.
No, it was very hot and very fast.
Oh my God, you were so mad.
I was so mad. I realized after the fact I could handle either the heat or the speed of the flow, but not both at the same time.
And we were just like seeing each other at this point. We were just
Yeah,
talking.
we were probably
dating.
6 to 8 months in, maybe.
Oh, we were that far in? I don't think so.
I think so.
Oh.
I think maybe I would say 6 months at the most.
So after that, you were like, in the middle of that class, was not going to take you out to dinner afterwards.
That's right. Yep. I remember it was going to
You were
be
like, I'm out of here.
yoga and dinner.
You're on your own.
Yoga and dinner. And halfway through that class, I was so mad.
So gross, too, because we were so sweaty.
Yeah.
And we just like went to Indian food.
I was just so tired
Mhm.
and so sweaty. And I just...
So
Well-
dehydrated.
Well, I mean, it's more of my approach to it because of the way I approach a lot of things, especially physically. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm a guy, and that's kind of how guys can sometimes be, or if because I'm a one, and I'm like, failure's not an option. Stopping is failing. Come on, you can do this.
Right, you didn't rest.
Didn't rest.
You weren't taking child's pose whenever you want.
No, because I still had the mindset of like, that's not what the instructor's doing. That's not
Mhm.
what they're asking. And it wasn't even like being rude, but it was just more like, that's not what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Didn't listen to my body.
You did not.
This is I would have a different reaction if I went in there now,
Yeah.
for many reasons. One being, I know enough to know what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
If my body's like, you should stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yes, body, you're right. But yeah, I was pushing myself way too hard. So I did have the thought, like, we are not going out to dinner. We're going home.
We're going home.
I am not happy with this. You are not getting Indian food. And we're just going to figure something else out. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That was about 40% in. And then by the time we got to 60% done with the class, I had pulled myself together.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, you are hungry. And that would be a really lousy way to end this date.
It would be a bummer.
Yeah, it would be a drag.
Would be a drag. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing from early on that made me realize that we were definitely in different spiritual spaces, I think. And at that point, it was more like you were not doing the whole spiritual thing.
No, I
At
wasn't
all.
at all.
And I brought you a chakra stone.
The blue one?
Mm-hmm.
Is that was early on?
Early
right?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mostly because it was very clear to me that you had some throat chakra stuff going on.
Oh, really?
Shocker.
It was obvious?
Yes.
Could you like just see it, or was it more of like my behavior where you're like clearly?
It's more of like feeling it.
Oh,
You could feel into it
Jeez.
and not verbalizing your needs or things like that. And so I got us communication stones or blue
yeah.
chakra stones.
We hadn't even moved here yet.
We didn't even we didn't even think about living together at that point.
No. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Honey. This
Oh,
we
yeah,
were
it
still
was.
working at the high. This was
Right.
pre like
No, I know. I just thought I didn't know if we had moved in together,
Nope.
but no, this
It
was
was before that.
pre moving in together.
It was
Shankara
before like
stones.
even you met my family in Boston. It was before all that.
You are right.
Yeah. So the look on your face though, when I was like, this is a chakra stone for communication because your throat chakra and D, you were not like, stop.
No, not at all.
You were not like, you did not poo or interrupt.
I didn't even have to hide that reaction.
No.
It was not
No,
even
of course.
an option or a.
But you were just a
There.
little bit like, huh, okay, thank you. You're very gracious. And of course, like, when you get into a relationship when you're older, something that we talked about early on too is like, just be who you are, right?
Right.
Like all veils, cloaking, pretending, masks, whatever, like you gotta let all that go. We're running out of time here to,
Yeah.
be goofing around.
Well, I think it ties into another conversation, which I think we're going to have later, is what are you bringing, like the archetype that you're bringing.
Yeah, how do you show up?
I think there's a difference between bringing a fake or insincere archetype and putting a good foot forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you see how we're dressed right now? I mean, for myself, I'll speak for myself. You look cute. But like,
We're very monochromatic.
I wouldn't wear this to a date out with you early on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that makes me disingenuous or like I'm presenting a false self.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean more like, if your room is a mess, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's the pile of laundry that's dirty and there's the pile of laundry that's clean. And this is your life.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a point as an adult in still the dating realm where just don't.
You know, for
Don't
me, you know
put
what it
the
is?
laundry away and pretend that this is what you do.
We were watching Shrinking, that show on Apple TV,
Oh, yeah.
and for me, the best metaphor for that is hiking.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not a hiker at your adult life, dating
Yeah.
life, if you're not a hiker,
Mm-hmm.
no part of you says that is a great way to spend my free time.
It's true.
Don't say you're a hiker or even enjoy hikes to someone who really likes them if you're on a date.
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it
Be like,
because
"It's not my thing."
that is a false advertising.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I wasn't interested in pretending. I wasn't interested in presenting some kind of like veiled side of myself where like I didn't come from the
Yeah.
background and the family and the experience and exactly who I am. So rather early on also, you met my mother.
Yeah, pretty
You
early.
met my mother really early.
Mhm.
And she immediately read your tarot cards. Like immediately.
She did.
And
Yep.
blew your mind.
Yeah, she did. That was one of those things I had never disregarded it
Yeah.
ever. I didn't really know a lot about it.
But you also had never had a tarot reading.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was really cool. That was a moment where I thought, well, I don't understand this, but there's more to it than I have given it credit for in the past, and I better pay attention.
Better
Because
pay
there were some things said in this reading that I cannot ignore. Can't
so
just
many
play it
things.
off. Yeah.
So many things. Yeah. I mean, I think that we had enough conversations to know that like I existed more in the, spiritual, mystical realm than you did. And I honestly find all religion, expression, and spirituality that isn't harmful or judgmental or like forced upon people to be really cool. So like, if you had said you had a different faith or you don't have any faith at all, like to me, it always was like, that's cool because that's your path. This is your path. And I think that that's an important part about like, if you're with someone else in partnership, it is highly likely that their spiritual path, trajectory, speed with which they engage with things is not going to match yours all the time.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, since today's topic is on the spiritual path, I think in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think in general, your, whatever it is, professional path, any life situation path, it's kind of a miracle if you find someone and at least one or two of them jive at the same, like in sync at the same time.
Yeah.
Like think how rare, like think how crazy that would be for that to happen. I mean, you get one or two, that's great. Chances are they're not always going to be, I think, as incongruous. Is that the word I'm looking for? Right? Yeah. yeah, for a while. I mean, I didn't really because I was raised Catholic school, K through 12. And then once to college, it was the first time where I'm not going to any mass. It's the first time that I was really had a choice in the matter. Going to college was okay, I can make a decision, and right now the decision is I don't want any part of this. And I don't, I think I dabbled in it as I grew older, or at least got curious about it and revisited it and I hate to say saw merit, oh, I guess it's okay. But it was just it didn't resonate for me, and it didn't really give me what it was nice. And it was, I remember lessons or things I learned about growing up, and it just didn't give me what I needed, So, and then I think part of my path at that point was it was almost like I was on the professional path.
Yeah.
Where I was a teacher trying to become a teacher. The first 2 or 3 years, you're getting your feet under yourself to I can do this job now. And then it's okay, well, how can I make this job mine? What can I bring to this role for my students that no one else can? What is my highest passion at the moment that I can incorporate and make other people excited about? And that was creative writing. It was games. It was simulations. That was the dive. And that's kind of I won't say it was spiritual, but it definitely gave me fulfillment.
Yeah.
Because it was acting on the highest passion at the time. And that ran its course. I mean, really, that ran its course. We moved here, and then everything was different than it was when we were living or working in Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's an important point is we watch our partners move through different phases and stages in different categories. And I think this question could be applied to, would it be a deal breaker? Right? Would it be a deal breaker if you were so much further in your professional trajectory than your partner was in theirs? And sometimes that answer might be yes. And I would say oftentimes, no, it wouldn't, you're doing your professional path. Just because I got a promotion and you didn't get a promotion doesn't mean we are not compatible because we're in different, we're on different paths. And I think that sometimes with spirituality, there is this idea or expectation that the energy needs to be the same. The energy needs to be matched. And I think that out there's a lot of examples, right, of allegedly these spiritual teachers that are in, coupled relationships, and this idea that they've cracked some code or figured it out, or oh, everything must be in such harmony because they're on this path together. And I would assert that probably what is more true is that they're consistently, if it's authentic, they're consistently working on meeting one another regardless of where they are on an individual path, because there just isn't one speed limit. There isn't one, one pathway up the mountain. There's so many different options. And so at some point you're going to be traveling together, and some points you're not going to be traveling together.
Yeah.
We were in different places. I mean, I had 3 children when we got together.
Right.
At no point was I well, you don't have 3 kids. So, I think that the important component is to have the awareness and the openness and the flexibility to learn from the differences that you have, to learn from oh, you're in this place in your life and I'm in this place in my life. And are we learning from each other's experiences and enriching our lives and each other's lives? Or are we consistently comparing that we're not in the same space?
You're right. Right. I think there's a lot to that. And I'm trying to think, do you think that life situation plays a role in that? And what I mean by that is there were 3 kids. One was at college, one was sort of living at home, one was definitely living at home. The kids were still around and in the house. I think that plays a role to how you navigate that. And I think sometimes, if the question is, well, how did you navigate it with the children and the spiritual path awakening, or like reintroduction to spiritual path, which was you at the time? How do you make that like work if you're not on the same exact path and there's the household to run? I'm like, barely. The answer is barely.
Yeah, barely.
And I remember having the thought where like, can a household that has like children and a family like this, I don't think two people can have a spiritual, like start a spiritual path at the same time. I'm like, I just, I can't, like, I don't think it can work. I think one person can be allowed the time and energy and focus to explore and learn about that. I don't know. I mean, I think there needs to be some groundedness where someone needs to be like, okay, I got to make sure, like, there's the details of the house that require attention. I don't know if that's fair or accurate or how you think about that, or if it's a cop out, you know what I mean? Where it's like, how did you guys do it? The answer is barely. I wasn't, I mean, you were learning about, that's when you first like really started practicing Kundalini and learning a lot about it. And not only are you just like learning about this religion, it's not like you are learning to become like a Catholic or convert. You know what I mean? Like you're taking, like my dad taught the classes, like where people who wanted to convert to Catholicism had to take classes, learn about it, and then you go through the rituals. That didn't have the level of physical practice that can affect you in ways of like energy movement and energy awakening that yoga practices can have. So like there's a whole other level of like not just learning and growing, but then like, oh, things are actually shifting in my body because of what I'm physically doing. That's a whole nother level to like adapt and deal with.
I think that, I think that everything is figure outable. So I'll say that.
Oh, right. I wasn't trying to say, oh, this is the rule. Like, oh, only one person can do it at a time. It's impossible to do it otherwise. I wasn't saying that. I'm saying in our case, that's what I noticed, and I had that thought. We never actually talked about it. Of course, everything's figure outable, but it was very challenging for me. So I'm like, we can't both be doing this. This is what's this one at a time job? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I would apply that to almost anything. I mean, I think like having children, like, so there's so many layers here. Having children in the house, regardless of how old they are, is going to, unless it is a full family experience where you're loading the kids in the car and everybody's going to the thing, right? If it is your personal spiritual journey, doing that with kids in tow is hard. It's really hard. And, Kundalini wove its way in and out of my life, but not as a consistent practice until they were old enough that I had space for myself.
Yeah.
Like we've done our personal podcast in the past where we talk about how much harder it is, right, for parents and mothers, I would say even more so, to have hobbies. And a lot of people would put yoga and personal wellness into the category of a hobby. And so trying to do that with kids where it was like, they would be with their dad and I would have opportunities to go to like a retreat or a weekend away or Kripalu. There was like a separation for me, so I got to like dip my toes in. What happened when we moved back to Ithaca was like, it was 24/7. Like it was work. It was my personal practice. It was my spiritual journey. So it was all consuming in much the same way that like, if you're in a relationship, again, not impossible, but when like we couldn't both be in a doctoral program.
No.
Like that's insane. It's a little bit of passing the baton, like, oh, like you want to go get another degree? Here you go. Like you carry the education baton right now and you get to do that. And then it can be the next person's turn. It would not have been sustainable. I think I would say also, if both of us were like, if I was like, I'm going to start a business, and you're like, me too, a separate one, like that. This is where it truly takes like partnership to support the other ends of things that need to be done while we're pursuing or deepening into something, whatever that something is. So I think that is a important distinction. And I think that a good question to ask, like if you're feeling frustrated around where your partner is like, what might they be holding that makes them feel like they don't have the space to tend to like their spiritual life?
Yeah.
Is there a concern that,
I mean, perceived or otherwise,
right?
like
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
or perceived.
Totally.
I mean,
all it needs to be is perceived. That's all that actually matters.
Yeah.
So it's perceived
Right.
there. It's there.
Right. Yeah. I think the excuse, and I'll say excuse because I feel like for me this is accurate at the time, was trying to figure out what to do, because like we taught at a school for 10 years before we moved here. We moved here. I did some subbing in schools and taught at the massage school, and it wasn't what I trained or was doing, so it was a whole other learning curve. I remember just like walking from the building to my car after days. I'm like, why can't I just want the chance to teach history again? Give me something I know I'm good at, because I just kept feeling like behind the 8 ball at that job. And then I did teach for a year at high school, and that only lasted a year. And then it was like, what now? So like you are slowly, I think between 16, 17, and 18, starting in
Yoga
earnest
farm.
your yoga farm and
Yeah,
your
yeah.
path there. And I am like, I don't even know, like I'll say the word landed. Like you found, the place where the work really jived with your values and your mission. And then, which also had the nugget or the other part of the spiritual practice, which was like there too, right? So you're getting a lot of those things, and where I'm just like, I got nothing right now. I have no idea. You know what I mean? So there was that too. And that was an excuse, because, sometimes the spiritual journey, path, search is a great time. That's a great time to do that stuff. When you're like, I won't say floundering, but when you're like floating along and you're in between things. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I use it as an excuse. Be like, well, I can't even begin to think about that because I got this other thing I'm thinking about. So I totally perceive that as an obstacle instead of an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about some hierarchy of needs here, or Eric Erickson's work?
Oh, are you saying that? Isn't that he like this versus that?
No. It's like you can't move forward on like spiritual path and awareness if you're in scarcity reactivity.
Right.
Like it's very, very hard to do that. And I would say that maybe that's not true like universally. I would say that there are Enneagram types and archetypes that show up in different ways when there is a struggle. And, this is an important part of knowing your partner, because you fast-tracked spiritual journey and experience the more grounded you got. Like, the more, we have to also mention that, like, you weren't just like, I don't have time for that. I don't care. Like you would come to yoga classes. There was a boundary around it. And you also went to grad school and got another master's degree. So it was like, how many growth areas can happen at one time reasonably?
Yeah.
But I do think that there are times where we look at our partners, and this is an important aspect of partnership. It's not a fun part, where we can be like, when was the last time you were uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Like, are you in a holding pattern? Are you in a rut? Do you challenge yourself? Like, I think that there are people who just need a little bit of nudging to step outside of their comfort zone, and spirituality might be an outside of their comfort zone type of a thing. And I think that this is definitely more of a resistance point for masculine identified people than it is feminine identified
Yeah,
people.
probably. I mean, if we're talking in broad strokes, I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I think that what I hear from students often is like, I'm doing all my personal growth work. I'm really examining myself. And like, he doesn't seem interested in doing that at all.
Yeah, and it's tough when it doesn't come, when it's not intrinsic and it comes from an external, especially a spouse, especially in this heteronormative example we're giving, where the wife is doing it and the husband. You don't want to come off as like, here's something else I need you to do, right? I don't want to use the naggy word, but I mean, it can come across as like, oh, why don't you this is something I'm learning about and it's great. Why don't you want to do it with me? Oh, you're not ready, but why not? We could do this together, right? And then yeah, that's not a good way to sell it. And I think most of the students we have, they found it, or maybe a gentle push, but I mean, it's the gentle push is the firmest you can get with a push for someone to find or at least dive into a spiritual practice. Yeah.
And for me, I mean, there were moments where I was really trying to like pull you forward.
Oh yeah, totally.
Trying. I'm like, let's do a thing. Like, what about this thing? What about this thing? And primarily, from you, I would get pocket vetoes more often than not, where you just like disengage. And I realized, like, it got to a point where I realized that I fell in love with you. And you had no impetus, no desire, no expression at that time of, I'd really like to go on a deep spiritual journey together. Like, this was never a conversation that we had. And so because this suddenly became really important to me, was that I had to get to that place of like, is this actually like a make or break? Is this a make or break in a relationship? And if he never decides to go on this path with me, will that be okay? Which required that I asked myself, like, what is it that I actually want? Do I need you to sit cross-legged in front of me, in a lecture hall where we're doing eye gazing for 25 minutes and, holding each other's hands and staring into each other's souls? That sounds fun to me, but no, like that wasn't it. Like, that wasn't what I needed.
And to be fair to me, I don't think I ever presented or tried to, that was never like, I like hiking.
Right.
I don't think I was ever shy about something like that being like, ugh.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, when we fell in love, what did I know about you? And I think that this is an important thing. It's like, when you fall in love with somebody, you have to ask yourself both of the questions. If this person never changes, like squeezes the toothpaste from the inside, like, I don't know, throws their socks all over the living room willy-nilly.
Leaves carrots in the kitchen.
Half-eaten carrots
or the
in
bag,
the kitchen.
just the bag of carrots.
Leaves their lunch out on the counter. Like, if this person does this forever, not only am I okay with that, but like, can I love them in that? And if this person completely changes, do I feel connected and committed to this person's soul, their energy, their essence, our energy together to be okay with that and to be all in with that? You have to ask yourself both of these things. Because I think we go into relationships and we're like, oh, I'm going to change this person. Or if they really were in a good relationship, then they would never do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
Or we're like, we see somebody and we're like, well, this is who they are and they will never change. And that's insanity.
What percentage of feminine energy people think or hope or want their partner to change in the beginning of a relationship, they'd see something and say, well, this will change at some point. What percentage?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's high. My based in zero data statement would be
I mean, maybe not zero data, because just you could think about it, you've
people I
known-
know.
people you know,
Yeah.
right?
From what I have witnessed in my life, I would say that the majority of men expect in heterosexual relationships, men expect their partner to not change.
Mm.
And the majority of women hope that their partners do. That's what I think.
That's hilarious.
That's what I think.
That's so fun. I mean, it's not funny because it's doomed for failure if you don't really come to terms with.
Right. If you can't realize that both things are likely going to be true
Yeah.
multiple times
Mm-hmm.
throughout, and probably the thing that you want them to change isn't going to change, and the thing that
Yeah.
you want to stay the same is going to change. So just buckle up for that. But yeah, I think like I just got really clear that all that I wanted was to be seen and held in like positive regard and enthusiasm for exactly who I am. And so my fear that you weren't initially interested in a spiritual journey was like, are you going to stop caring what I have to say? Are you going to be
Right.
disengaged because I'm like, chakra, 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 you know, or like, let me talk to you about the, you know, energy rising up my spine, or let me tell you what I experienced in meditation today. And you're just going to be like, ugh, right?
Right. Yeah.
And as long as you were willing to engage with me,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need you to participate with me.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed it to feel like my path was valid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we could get clear on like, what is it that I actually need my partner, you know, and of course, anyone who does Kundalini yoga in particular, I would say the same about transcendental meditation. There are practices out there where you do them and you're like, I want this for everyone. And why wouldn't
Right.
like, why wouldn't you want your spouse
Mm.
to do something that feels so good to you?
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yep.
And if you were like, you know, if you were like, I mean, this didn't happen, it wouldn't happen, but if you were like, I just love role-playing games and they're so fun and I love doing them, and I was like, no, I don't care about that. I don't think that necessarily itself would have been a you
Yeah.
know, a deal breaker.
Right.
As long as I was willing to engage with your enthusiasm around it.
Yeah, totally. Because if you ever presented, for this example, if you were ever presented as someone I knew after a while I could or would not go to share in this joy, that is like the seeds of resentment right
Yeah.
there. That's the seeds of like, well, you don't want to participate at all in this thing. You don't even want to hear about the participation of this thing that's giving me this joy. I'll do that with someone else. You know what I mean? I'll find that connection elsewhere. And you're right. Like, I wouldn't say to you, oh, you have to do this thing too. But like, yeah, I would like you to share it with, and it's about sharing too.
Mhm.
It's about, you know, yes, it's like, oh, I think you could find the benefit. You can find why I love it. But when it is coming down to wanting to share the experience, the joy in any way.
Yeah.
And if you're closing that door, man, they'll open a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also got really clear that, like, you know, yes, yoga was something that was a part of my life when we got together.
Mhm.
I wasn't eating, sleeping, breathing yoga when we got together. So similarly, you had already you mentioned on this episode, right? Like, you once were a runner. If you got heavy back into running
Yeah.
and like it became your thing, there is no way. There is no way.
No.
I will listen to you talk about running. I will buy you running clothing. I will make sure that, your shoes are the best ones in the world. I know about the equipment that is helpful. I encourage you and look up supplements and all those things, but never am I ever running. Right? So I got so clear about that where it's like, it's not that I need you to do it. It's that I need you to care that I do it.
Yeah.
And almost in perfect design, the second that I was like, I have no attachment to you ever doing Kundalini, you got interested.
Yeah, I mean, you saying that makes me think of another of a thing where you're just pushing for a desired result and you're just worrying about it and you want the thing that you're thinking of to happen. The second you let go, literally, like, this is the best advice I can give anyone. You have to not be attached. I mean, in my head, I was saying the phrase like, you know what, I just don't care anymore. When I probably did care, but I could feel I let go of an attachment to a result. Literally, like, it wasn't like, oh, I don't care. Universe, did you hear that? I don't care. Give me what I want now. No.
Yeah.
Such a clear feeling of detachment. And then, like, hours went by and it was like flip, like scenario flipped. Like what I was so worried about or like was hoping for, I'm like, you know what? It's not. And then immediately, it's so weird.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Well, and I had read the book, The Surrender Experiment.
Okay.
Michael Singer wrote a book a while ago called The Untethered Soul. And it was one of those books that I read at the wrong time in my life. Like, there's just certain things that are not going to, like I was a single mother, 3 kids, working full time, teaching. Like, my soul was clearly tethered. So this entire book, I just wanted to throw it in the garbage. I was like, what in the entitled white man is going on in this book right now? However, because I know that I have temper tantrums in my brain, I was like, there probably were some points that I couldn't connect to because my life was so different than the one that was being presented. When he released The Surrender Experiment, I was reticent to read it because of that initial hit on the other book. But I did read it, and it was around the time that there was this like seemingly unsurpassable elephant in the room in our relationship, where it was like, I wanted this so bad for you. and I wanted it for me. I did. When I got really clear, I wanted it for me because I felt like it would give you so much. It would just give you so much more spaciousness to accept yourself and to love yourself for who you are and how I know you to be. And when something works for you, you want to hand it out like candy to everyone on the corner. And I was a little bit making it about me, like, if I can't convince my spouse to do this shit, how on earth is anybody else going to listen to me about it?
Oh, it's so unfair. Don't gauge your potential.
Oh, come on. You're like that. You're the litmus, babe. If I can I can get you to do a thing, eat some chickpea brownies, make them taste good.
What a terrible example. No, I mean, that's a shame because you would think like, oh, I have a built-in kind of guinea pig for my teaching experiments or whatever. But it's almost like, oh, it's such a shame that that's the case because so often there's the hesitancy, there's the hesitation to like do it, which I get because I was in the same headspace. My other advice would be, it's tricky. You don't want to like be forced to do it because, is it going to be valuable? Like, are you going to get out of it if someone drags you along?
Right. Yeah.
No, you have to decide to do it, and don't close the door on it right away. Like, maybe give it a little bit of a shot. Maybe give it a look over, like give it. I'm not saying like go to a Kundalini class. Like if we're using this example,
Yeah.
you should go to a Kundalini class. Like, no, don't do that. I mean, be curious, not
not
judgmental.
judgmental.
Is
Mhm.
to
Ted
the
Lasso.
extent that you can, without shutting it out completely.
Mhm. And I did do some wife magic.
Well, there goes free will.
I was like, he doesn't have to do it. He doesn't ever have to do this because I can do it enough for both of us. And
I do not doubt that at all.
right. And so I was reading the Surrender Experiment, and I came to the realization that what I actually wanted from you is for you to just care that I was doing it, and that it was important to me, and to not feel like I was this like weirdo or, like I think I still had some of those old like witch wounds of like, this is going to be the thing that like makes me like separate from and the 3 children were living at home too, so they're just like, ugh, what are you doing? They're so annoying. Like, and for a while I was doing morning practice in our wood stove room, and then it was really cold out there. Like, unless it was 1,000 degrees because the wood stove was going, it was really, really cold in the morning. So it was an either or. And there were complaints by the freeloaders that lived in our house called the children.
Freeloaders.
That there was early morning tuning in and weird breathing sounds and all that. So I started doing morning practice in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And
It put me right back to sleep.
You would go right back to sleep. You would be snoring up a storm the whole time I'm chanting. And, I was like, he's in it. Like, he's here with me. He's not annoyed with me for doing this.
No, never once. Never once was I like, God, I wish you would go in a different room.
Yeah.
I never had that thought. I was so okay. And I mean, geez, after the first couple times, I'm like, you're going to chant? Sweet. And like a baby with a lullaby.
You would go back to sleep. And like, and it felt like you would be like, how was morning practice? Like, so kind of checking in, like, how do you feel? And that also felt like, I was like, this is good. Like, I just don't need you to do it.
Yeah.
Like, is there something that's missing from my practice because you're not rolling out a mat next to me? No, this is my practice.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be worried about what your practice is anyway. And like clockwork, you found Sahibi Kriya.
I did.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then there were other things you were curious about. There's other, spiritual paths and explorations that you've done that have been different from mine along the way. And there's parts where we overlap. Like, you love archetypes, and archetypal healing. I have a mind to just get you some Jungian psychology books for Christmas.
Oh,
because
yeah, go for it.
That was his whole angle. Was
I know. I did have thought when I'm looking over the books. They all reference Jungian archetypes.
Oh,
I'm like, I don't have this base layer that I probably feel like
you need a little foundational
know.
stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Let's set the record straight.
It's. I mean, especially with people, if they're worried that like they're going through changes because of what they're learning at Yoga Farm, what they're practicing, and it is totally normal to have a partner, spouse, family not care, but not get it or follow exactly. Like, and if it's a thing that's going to serve them, they'll find it.
Totally.
And it's going to find it the moment you stop worrying if they find it in earnest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as always, honey.
As always.
It's been a pleasure.
I think that you should share with our video participants the beautiful artwork that is your fingernails right now.
Oh, yes.
Look at those.
Look at those.
She may not be on a path, our granddaughter, of
she She
being
got
a
two
nail
and a half
technician.
two and a half nails done before
She was bored.
she was bored with it.
She was bored.
Well, actually, you know what I think happened is she did these two and then said, "Pop-Up, can you paint my nails?"
Oh.
So then I did that, and then after
Your nails
that,
are way bigger than hers.
after that happened, there was no room for the other 7.
I mean, your 3 nails probably equal her 10.
It probably do. I dipped the brush in once, and I'm like, I still got some left over after all
you
10.
could do all 10. Yeah, she did inform me when she was here the other day too that people are boring.
People are boring.
People are boring, Nana. There's people everywhere, and they're boring. So boring must be a new
love
word
that.
for her.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She's a genius.
She is. Cutie.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Merry Christmas, because
Merry
next
Christmas.
Wednesday,
Happy holidays.
happy holidays, everyone.
Happy arbitrary New Year.
Happy solstice tomorrow.
Solstice.
Yeah. Happy
Gregorian New Year. Yule.
Yule. Christmas. Yule.
If you're catching this the day before Yule, Mom is doing a ritual in
nice.
membership.
Cool.
So check that out. And
Awesome.
Josh is doing some musical caroling, mantra nighting.
On the 20th or
21st?
21st.
Yeah,
Nice.
Fun.
Awesome.
Fun solstice.
Check
stuff.
it out. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.